Right. Call the meeting to order of the Public Works Committee meeting February 23rd. Time is 6:32. Sorry, just a minute or two late, but we'll get started. We have a quorum. I see Mary, you're online. Thank you for joining us. We have four more in the room here. So we'll get started on the agenda. Um, Approval of minutes from the February 9th meeting. That was our joint meeting with Pet Bike and Transit. Does anybody from the committee have any comments or edits from that meeting minutes? Charles, you had a comment earlier. Graham?
That one's been fixed by staff prior to this, but I just had a general comment for recording minutes. I do think that we should differentiate as a committee between excused absences and uh, absences without notice or otherwise unexcused absences. For instance, if a member were recovering from a medical procedure, that would be an excused absence, or so ill that they couldn't attend. And that would give people who are reading the minutes at a later date a clearer idea of who was absent and who was really absent without a reason.
Okay.
Had the minutes scrutinized in the past for committee attendance, and we do have an ordinance governing the expected meeting attendance of committee volunteers. So before somebody runs afoul of the corrective actions embedded in the ordinance, it might be better if we had a clear record of whether or not that was actually warranted.
So when we're like RSVPing to Ben, should we put a reason in there so that he can kind of track what's excused and what's not?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
Just in terms of language in the minutes, you just want to put excused, unexcused, and simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
And I would ask that these meeting minutes be corrected to note that Alder Madden's absence was excused.
We can do that.
Okay, any other comments? So we'll make the one edit, Ben, to those minutes.
Yep.
And move on to the next agenda item. Which is approval of Culver's traffic impact analysis report.
Yep, so I can provide the update on that one. We have a memo that we added into the agenda earlier today. I think Ben sent out an email to the committee. The memo summarizes some of the more significant recommendations from SRF. We do have Noah Leonard on here as well from SRF. He'd probably be a better source for technical questions than me. But at a high level, what we're looking at is some pretty minor changes to their site plan to help with circulation, prevent queuing out onto Lisa Lane. Currently, their site plan includes a exit only on the east access point. A big recommendation from the TIA is to replace that with the pork chop. So it's a right in, right out. A big upside of that change would be queuing in the site parking lot rather than queuing out onto Lisa Lane. That would come with some different marking adjustments and signage as well. Regarding the public roadways, the intersection of Century and Laura Lane already operates at a really low level for our level of service. It wouldn't, not that it would get better with this development, but it wouldn't degrade to a lower level of service with this development. So we aren't proposing, or the analysis isn't proposing any changes at that intersection at this time. However, at the Lisa Lane and Parmenter intersection, there is a figure at the end of the TIA that shows what an alternate recommendation from SRF for that layout. Um, Generally, that prevents left turns onto Parmenter in either direction, eastbound or westbound out of O'Connell's. We do have a couple alternate options we had discussed internally. Um, those would include either continuing the median from Parmenter Street north so that there isn't a left turn option southbound on Parmenter into O'Connell's. Um, that would just help prevent any other unwanted turning movements. It would also help with um, pedestrian access. It provides a larger island for the pedestrians to um, be safe on in the middle of traffic rather than having a much smaller median there. Um, the other option, the third option that I listed in my memo, is just doing a pork chop on the intersection, on the west leg of the intersection on Lisa Lane. Um, the pros of this is that it would not be as extensive of a design. It would not be as intrusive into the intersection. O'Connell's would still be able to turn left in and left out. Um, but there's really no structural way to keep vehicles from turning left then, right? I mean, they could just go right around the pork chop. They're not supposed to. There'll be signage and a barrier, but it's not as significant as the other options. So what we have is we recommend that the committee approves the TIA that was submitted and endorse improvements in the report. We're also looking for input from the committee on any ideas for that intersection of Parmenter and Lisa Lane. Um, if you prefer one alternative over the other or a different alternative entirely, that's what we were looking for. So yeah, Noah and I are both here for questions. So any questions, feel free to shoot them our way.
Okay. Anybody from the committee have any questions? Charles?
Have we considered that maybe this site just is not suitable for a drive-through restaurant?
So when we looked at the TIA, and I know we mentioned very initially that a traffic signal might be warranted at the intersection. That is something that was looked at in the TIA, just due to the volumes of traffic that are generated from a drive-through restaurant like this. Through that analysis, SRF found that it did not meet the warrants for a signal at this intersection. Um, as I'm sure you can see, there aren't any great options here to make this a flawless performing intersection. Um, the idea, based on our TIA guidelines as well, is that we just can't degrade to a lower level of service than we're already at. So my recollection is that the left turn off of Lisa Lane onto Parmenter going north was the largest reason for operational degradation. And no, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Um, so we're looking at ways with these alternatives to mitigate that impact. And if we mitigate the impact from all the queuing from waiting to turn left onto Parmenter, then we anticipate we would stay at an acceptable level of service for the intersection.
Charles?
Yeah, so I saw that in the TIA. I just the way I'm looking at this is it's 6 o'clock on a Friday night, and hypothetical driver is going to get Culver's. Uh, they then wait about 30 minutes from the time they enter the queue at 6 o'clock, based on my frequent experience at exactly this time at Culver's. Um, and they're waiting to take that, they're going to take that food home. Um, Having already waited 30 minutes minimum for the food, this driver is then released onto a roadway with a longer than desirable wait time. I think a few more than 2% of the drivers are going to chance it going around the pork chop. So then it becomes a question of other solutions. And the other solutions that we could conceivably adopt unfairly encumber a different business. And so I think that's a bigger question for the plan commission and for council, for them to give us policy direction uh, without any specific recommendation. So I'd feel better if we just kicked this to those two bodies. And if that's a policy decision they want to make, then they can send it back to us for traffic engineering.
Okay, so you want to not make any decision on the alternative options? You want to refer it out or send it to who? What committees?
Plan, and then if they want to send it to council, they can.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to cut Charles off.
Oh yeah, sorry, Daphne, I didn't see your hand up.
Okay, Daphne,
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in since Plan Commission will be, making a decision on this. To put in a drive-through, Culvers will need to get a conditional use permit for that location. And so one of the things that they will have to determine, and I think this is where Public Works could maybe help them out, is basically determining if the, drive-through is designed in a way that doesn't, it says impede or impair vehicular and pedestrian traffic movement or exacerbate the potential for pedestrian vehicular conflicts. And so, we at Plan Commission, we would basically send them Luke's memo. And then, you know, since they don't have as much expertise, it would kind of just be, up to them to decide if it can, you know, if they can meet those standards. So I think it would help if Public Works could also maybe give their opinion or recommendation on if the design or, any of that could impede, pedestrian or vehicular traffic.
okay. Noah, you recognized?
Yeah, awesome. I think I can elaborate just a little bit, not answer Daphne's question, but just elaborate on it. As part of our analysis in this TI, I'm sure you all saw, towards the end of the report, we do have some additional, and this is in Luke's memo as well, but some additional considerations and analysis we did surrounding the site access evaluation. We do know that's especially with a high traffic land use such as a Culver's with two ordering windows and drive through, et cetera. And so our analysis, and this is part of Luke's recommendations, is to provide some additional circulation internal site elements such as pavement markings and signage, which would allow drive-through vehicles to queue within the site rather than on Lisa Lane. And that was to our point, why adding the eastern driveway, why adding an additional ingress point would allow people to kind of join the queue at the back rather than cutting the corner in. And so I think the queue capacity within this drive-through with our recommendations more than doubles what they originally drew up, assuming that vehicles line up in the way that is intended. Now, it's not always the case, obviously, but what we also did was the nearest Culver's with dual lane ordering is on Mineral Point over by the West Town Mall. And so we did a fair bit of kind of review of that site, and I'm a frequent flyer over there, admittedly. So, but that one, to its credit, it works quite well. They do queue within the site. That's off of a main main arterial Mineral Point that has some restricted access, but they do circulate around the site, and our recommendations kind of mimic that. And I think we hope to see success with that, keeping vehicles within the site as for as long as possible. Ultimately, we can't design to the Friday night fish fry peak hour, but we do our weekday peak hour in the evening, and then Saturday is what our analysis surrounded around. So um, just to kind of elaborate a little bit more on that and how this TIA attempts to kind of tackle that subject as well in tandem with Daphne's point.
So you talked a lot about traffic coming into the site, queuing up. I'm looking at the the memo that's talking more about people exiting the site, I think. And the biggest concern sounds like getting out and turning left northbound, trying to go northbound on Parmenter is the biggest concern. Would you guys agree with that, Luke or Noah?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue was the eastbound left turn out of Lisa northbound on Parmenter Street, correct?
So on that letter, paragraph A, can you tell me if I'm reading it correctly? Because the last sentence is southbound Parmenter, and I think it's supposed to be northbound, preventing left turns from O'Connell's onto. It says southbound Parmenter. Is that correct?
Yes, so that is correct. Because O'Connell's is on the east side of the road. So if they were going to be taking a left, they would end up on southbound Parmenter.
O'Connell.
And then
Oh
coming
yeah.
out of Culver's, it would be northbound. So I think, unless I had that written backwards,
Yeah.
essentially just not taking a left turn from either direction onto Parmenter. Um, so I just pulled up what SRF had pulled up as their recommended alternative. So you can be taking a left onto Lisa, you could be taking a left into O'Connell's, but you cannot take a left coming out of either direction.
So
Um,
how does traffic get northbound from Culver's with this
so
op?
yeah, so I guess there's really two options there. They could either, I think this is the Trotta, is that correct right there, the apartments? Um, there's a break in the median right here that does not lead anywhere. There's no driveway or anything. Um, So an option could be a U-turn there, or they could go up Lisa or Laura Lane to Century if they were trying to get north. Um, I think Noah, you estimated 50 going in each direction for the analysis, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, and one thing I did want to point out here too is the recommended right in, right out access here. Assuming that people come through the drive-through, are in the waiting area of Culver's before they get their food and then come out to this first exit here. You could probably fit a couple cars here before they start backing up into Culver's driveway. Um, so that would help at least not queue out onto the roadway. It would queue out into Culver's property if people are sitting there for a long time waiting to turn.
And the analysis that we ran, we don't anticipate, assuming that the recommendation for access restriction at that intersection. Now, this doesn't have to be to Luke's point as well. This is just simply a mock-up of an option here. But assuming that the right out, the eastbound right turn is the only movement at this intersection, we don't anticipate there being significant queuing or delay at all for vehicles. Should be a quite smooth movement based on the analysis there if we're just restricting to a single right turn movement.
Did they show you what's going to happen with that site to the south a little bit? Like, because there is another driveway to the south, but they're not going to be used. It looks like they're not going to actually be using it.
This where my cursor is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a cross-access agreement or easement with this property. So people could enter in through culverts down here. I would anticipate most people are not going to do that unless they really know that that's an option. Maybe staff would for culverts and park back in this area of the lot, but I wouldn't anticipate that being significant.
Okay. I mean, just personally, I'm not a fan of the right turn, of really basically forcing people to make a U-turn going southbound to get northbound. Um, is that why the third option makes it seem like even though you're restricting it, you're still kind of letting people make that turn if they're desperate, or can you explain that one, Luke? That
Yeah,
third
so
option?
no, so we would not be encouraging it, or it really would not be allowed. Um, my language in there was more just recognizing that it would happen. You can put up all the signs you want. People are likely not going to follow it 100% of the time. Um, so again, to point out that there's a right in, right out right here, but there's still an out on the west driveway as well. Um, and this is not a driveway line on the north side. It's only one lane, so there's still free flowing traffic. Um, People can get out onto Lisa Lane here and go up to Laura and up to Century as well if they're going north.
Okay.
And one thing with the restricted, we call a right in, right out, left in intersection, because there are median openings existing on Parmenter Street, this alternative would likely mimic what we call R-cut or restricted crossing U-turn movement intersections. These are becoming quite popular on the DOT level, and they are much safer for high volume mainline intersections where you have movements that need to complete a crossing in a single stage. And so a right turn then into a U-turn in a qualitative standpoint from a safety viewpoint, that is a safer movement to make than a left turn across four lanes of traffic as well. So that's another piece of the consideration here, a safety element that you don't necessarily see with the numbers of the operations too.
Safety at a cost of convenience, right?
Yes, yep.
And I guess just to add on to that, there is the roundabout further south too. So if for some reason someone needed to, do that U-turn movement and they weren't comfortable doing so, they could go all the way down to the roundabout and come back. Obviously, that's a bit of a jog, but um, again, it's just always an option.
So what option of the three are we looking at on the screen right here?
This would be the first option from my memo. So allowing left turns still, or allowing left turns southbound on Parmenter.
Okay.
And one additional, I guess, piece to this alternative in comparison to Luke's second alternative, this is just simply a graphic to illustrate the movements. You would need to further analyze the geometrics of this intersection to see if you could actually fit that southbound left lane and northbound left lane in there. I think there is some merit that you may not be able to fit both exactly where they are today. Um, just given the median island you do need to provide in the middle. Um, Southbound left, both of these need to have kind of their own turn lane. So the southbound left there with the blue arrow, that's a new turn lane developed here as part of this scenario, different than what is out there today. Whereas that northbound left one, that is there today. So I think that the geometrics would need to be kind of flushed out a little bit more, as well as the kind of the crossing on the north leg there. That's an existing crossing, but in a different configuration now, as shown on the screen with the southbound left lane. It would be a single longer crossing for pedestrians because there is no space for refuge in the middle with that smaller median island. So it would be a single stage 5-lane crossing. Whereas if you were to omit that southbound left lane, you could have a two-stage crossing, crossing 2 lanes at a time. So just another element I wanted to point out, difference between this alternative and the second.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just piggyback on one thing Noah said. This isn't necessarily a design at this point. Everything is conceptual, and we would have to go through um, actual design to get to a final plan set.
Is there any discussion of maybe using more of the property to the south to exit vehicles not on Lisa Lane, but basically on another driveway? so that they can queue up on the property and turn left or right on the Parmenter?
Offhand, I'm not sure what the language of their access agreement would have. Um, my assumption is that it's always an option. If they have an access easement through there, I don't know if we would want to encourage it necessarily though. Given that we can go down, there's really no defined lanes or anything through that property. It would probably lead to confusion, I would have to guess, for drivers coming both ways.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that as a traffic management plan for this. I'm again concerned about once the drivers have exited the property. Um, either onto Parmenter, uh, or onto Lisa to an extent. Because we have pedestrian crossings there. We also have the the bike lanes on Parmenter Street. So we have the potential for bicycle conflicts, designing the intersection on Parmenter in such a way that we have left-hand turn lanes and the physical barrier. I don't think we have space within that existing street, the way it's designed and outlined here. Um, I haven't. I will confess I did not measure the lane widths before this meeting, but I don't think there's a great way to cannibalize enough of that street to add in a left-hand turn. Um, on Parmenter. So I've concerns about that. But also, I appreciate that we aren't engineering to the standards of a Friday night fish fry in a vacuum, but we do know rather specifically that those are the standards that this intersection is going to need to meet when this culvert is built. So I think we ought to be engineering to that standard. Otherwise, it's just going to be a case of entirely foreseeable actual use differs from what we planned on. So I think we should be engineering it to the standards of the actual use of the structure.
Well,
Can I
maybe
sh-
since we got, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, can I share one quick thing, Luke, here, real quick on my screen?
Yeah, you probably have to request it, and Ben will give you permission.
Just to show real quick the iterative process and where we started and where we ended up. So that you all can see this is the existing site plan for culverts as proposed. So this is where we started. This is what they gave us basically. Ingress, egress on the west side, egress only on the east side. And so our first recommendation was to adjust this to allow for ingress and egress with a right in, right out restriction. But then that's still, obviously, as you mentioned, this is the only queuing. This is the order kiosk. So you can start thinking of your queuing starting here. There's room for about 6 cars on both lanes, 12 total. Anything beyond that starts to impede the circulation of the site. So again, that's where we kind of bring in these additional elements. And so when cars come in, if there is vehicles stacked into this piece here, someone coming in here, they'll go their way around and join the queue, or they'll continue to this ingress point and join the queue here. This provides an additional 12 spots. So you're looking at probably 24 cars total that can fit here in any sort of steady nature. Again, I think Culver's does their best to process orders. They have additional designated drive-through parking here and here as well beyond the actual service window here. So in thinking about elements of additional storage, this is what we kind of did to achieve that within the site itself. So I just wanted to share that. how we arrived at those conclusions, kind of and where we started.
Go back to the original again.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. This was the as proposed.
John, do you have any questions on this one?
Not that I want to play the Culver's engineer, but where's the queue for pickup? Is it literally on the drive, those two lanes, or that one lane?
So I think it starts here. This is where you kind of would have your ticket on the mirror and waiting. And then there's additional parking here. And then I believe this is also intentional for that overflow as well.
I'm just curious because if I pick up my food for 14 people and the guy behind me only wants he and his wife, obviously their order is going to come up a lot quicker. And if they have to get in that queue on the way out, they're not going to be happy people either. But that, again, that's Culver's problem. That's not ours. So, I'll drop it.
But it becomes our problem when they get on the road and they're frustrated and tired of waiting.
Yeah.
So
You
I
can't
think
control.
the way this is laid out right here, it's kind of like the existing Culvers in a way where you have parking on both sides for waiting for orders, and then the middle
Yeah.
allows through. So
This is also different from the existing site. These are 5 what they designate as curbside pickup. So in the case where you place an order ahead of time on the app or online, these are designated spots for pickup, what they call curbside. This is different than what the existing site offers as well.
True. Okay.
I was very happy I could use the word curbside in the report. I'm not going to lie to all of you.
Was waiting for it.
It is a wonderful pun.
Well, I mean, so we got this memo kind of late, but I'm not seeing like a great option, but of the three, I feel like the first one is probably the best we have to work with. I know there's some effort to move this along. I was gonna say maybe we should approve the TIA and then ask for a little more refinement on the recommended option and maybe an alternative. So I'm asking the committee if they think we want a little more time to look at the preferred option or the recommended option, plus maybe an alternative. Or if you're okay with maybe a motion on the first option that's in this memo, even though we only had a little bit of time to really look at it.
Personally, Don, I'm fine with the original option, but it's going to take a lot of signage and road paint to make sure people know that, hey, you can't turn left here. And direct them to how to get to northbound Harmony. I mean, it's
Inconvenient. That's what I mean. There's no great option.
Obviously, once they do it 3 times and figure out, oh, darn, I gotta go south to go north, they'll figure out a different way. People are smart.
We're favoring safety
I realize
with a major compromise on convenience.
convenience, but
Right.
it's convenience that is doable. I mean, it's not out of the question. It's like when we close Century for the bridge next year. People will find a way to get around it.
Yeah.
And
That's
they might decide that, oh, that's a better way anyway. But I mean,
You might get people deciding to turn left anyway. Here,
yeah, not if
That's their risk, though.
It's obstructed enough. They
well,
won't.
I mean, this is a raised median, right, Luke? We're talking about raised. Okay,
yeah,
not just paint.
Yeah, it's not just paint, it's
That's a great.
the actual structure.
And not too many people are going to do that. Never mind.
No, they are going to turn left.
I see them do it all the time at the MoCA on University Avenue in Madison,
Oh, yeah. Seen that.
all the time.
Is Mary still on? Do you have an opinion, Mary, about how we should proceed? Do you want a little more time? Are you okay with the first option? I can't see.
Everyone's been asking really good questions. I would like to agree with Dawn on this one. And yeah, appreciate the work everyone's put in. I've seen my fair share of crazy drive-throughs throughout my life, and I think that this is a thoughtful way to approach it. And I also think that people will find a way to drive through, so or drive home rather, my point.
So can I ask just a quick clarifying question? Because now we've looked at a bunch of different options, starting to get them a little mixed up. So with this first option that we would potentially recommend, there is no left turn out of O'Connell's. So that does impede their business. And having a 5-lane crosswalk does not necessarily give pedestrians enough of a median for respite. It's not enough of an island that they can cross 2 lanes, wait, and then go across the other 3. Is that correct?
We could, we could extend the nose of this median. Yeah, so there would be some refuge there. But yeah, it would be 2 and then 3.
I don't like making that traffic flow for O'Connell's more difficult than it already is. That's not a great parking lot to get in and out of on the best of days. But I'm more concerned about making sure that we have a big enough refuge island if we're going to have a left turn lane there for pedestrians, because that crossing that's the only available crossing to get to that point. There's nowhere to put another one there. And there are plenty of people who are using that crosswalk to get from one end to the other. I don't want to see kids darting across 5 lanes of traffic to get to Culver's.
Luke, can the median not extend so far south so that people leaving O'Connell's on the south driveway can turn left or get to southbound Parmenter? Or is that not gonna work? That way we wouldn't be messing up their traffic as much.
Yeah, I mean that's something we could definitely look into to see if there's room for that to keep the left turn restriction off of Lisa, while maintaining the left turn from O'Connell's. Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure about, if there's a dedicated turn lane there, if we would want to be directing traffic that way. But it's something we could look into more.
How we anticipated people leaving O'Connell's as part of this alternative is because O'Connell's does have 2 driveways, that southern driveway would be utilized. And if people wanted to continue heading southbound on Parmenter, they would enter that northbound left lane that's clearly marked there and then make a U-turn and head their way south. So that would be a quite easy movement. Or they could also utilize, again, the north driveway, head northbound briefly, and then at the next median opening, do another U-turn and head southbound again. That's how these intersections are generally designed.
Yeah, and we understand that that's not obviously the most convenient way for that to occur, but it's still an option.
Would anyone like to make a motion then? I think from what I'm hearing, most of the committee's on board with the first option, the recommended option. From what it sounds like from Daphne, they would like us to at least have a recommended so they can move forward with this.
I'll make the motion that we recommend approval of the TIA with option 1. Also having prior to final engineering, that we get another crack at this, obviously.
Yeah.
And that'll go to planning and council at this point. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Bechtel will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I have my concerns that I've expressed about doing this. I don't think that there is a way to address the concerns that I've raised. So I'm going to vote against this, but I fully expect it to pass.
All right, we'll take a vote then. All those in favor of passing the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mary, did you say aye? Sorry if I didn't.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and opposed?
No.
Okay. You have 4 ayes and 1 opposed. Motion will pass.
Which is not to say that I don't appreciate the work that all of you have done on this.
All right, moving on to our next agenda item. Subdivision ordinance rewrite. Ben, are you briefing us on this?
That will be Daphne.
Okay.
Yes, hi everyone. So this is the subdivision ordinance. We kind of started this basically right after we updated our zoning ordinance, knowing that, with allowing, a lot smaller lots in our zoning ordinance, there could be more potential for, people subdividing their land in order to put, maybe 2 houses on a previously 1 single family house lot. And so with that, there are a lot of updates to, design standards, streets, and all of that. And so I was hoping to get feedback. I put in a bunch of questions in my memo for you guys. Feel free to go, off of that, or if you've read, other parts of it, feel free to give me. I'm just here to listen to any comments or recommendations that you guys might have regarding the ordinance.
All right, thank you. All right, does anybody from the community? Oh, Charles, you're recognized.
Yeah, under 1A and Daphne, Luke, Ben, if Don, if any of you know the answer to this from either time served on the committee or looking at past private streets. For the past private streets that we've allowed, do the utility lines run similarly in those to what we would expect under city standards or not? Because if we're creating private streets within the ordinance for the issue of consistency across it and addressing things, but also for the ease of Sean's life when he's managing these projects, future Sean and Mike, when they are for the utility lines, I think we may actually, if we allow private streets, need to make sure that we specify for utilities as well and location of utility lines.
So I guess which section was the question under? I think I missed that part. Just so I
It's the memo
Oh,
or
in the memo.
feedback
Okay.
requested by staff, 1A design standards.
So yeah, I guess if you're asking specifically about utilities, then those would have to meet all the same standards, essentially. For cover, um, if they're going to be public still and serve multiple lots.
Okay, so if we're allowing the creation of a private street, then the utilities will have to be sited in the same location they would for a public street.
Yes, if it's still public utilities, then we would still hold them to all the same standards.
For example, separation, sewer and water,
Yeah,
depth of water versus depth of sewer, location of storm, et cetera. I mean, those are the utilities as far as MT&E is concerned, or Spectrum, or the other fiber companies, they sort of beat their own drum, do their own thing. We really don't have a lot of control over those. Is that correct, Lou?
Yeah, they have pretty broad rights when it comes to stuff like that.
So,
Yeah, but we don't have to maintain MG&E's utilities
No,
either,
no,
so
no.
that's not a design concern.
right. But
Acceptance
I
for
think that,
safety.
meeting our standards when they do a private road is what Luke is saying, which is what you're asking. So
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we specifically included the location of the utilities and the necessary easements in the road standard. If that's addressed, I really have no concerns about private roads.
One comment, Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Just about private streets, we've kind of experienced this recently. So we still provide services on private streets in terms of brush collection, leaf collection, and more recently Christmas tree collection. So that's something we've run into as public works staff, is ensuring that we still have access in terms of street width and turning radius and everything like that. So that's something that I think at least we would probably want to consider when we're talking about private streets, is that they're not always the most convenient to be accessible by either city vehicles or pelletary or whatever waste and refuse recycle that happens. So just an FYI on that. That's something we grapple with on a fairly regular basis. So.
Yeah, I noticed like the alley with 20 feet pavement. I don't think we have that in our neighborhood. I don't think it's that wide.
there's no way it's 20.
I know the palletary trucks have trouble with that, so.
Yep.
I like the way it's written. You're giving them minimums and ranges. And then I think the comment was they can always ask for waivers on that on a case by case basis, which I agree with as well.
Yeah.
So does anybody else have any comments or questions on this? I admit I didn't read it word for word, but
And I didn't expect you guys to read everything in there, but I tried to highlight, the specific sections that, Public Works Committee could be more interested in.
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so the recommendation is, let's see, we got a review, provide feedback, which we did a little bit here.
Mhm.
And I think that's it.
Yeah,
We don't
no
need to vote on
formal,
it.
yeah, no formal motion is necessary, just any input you guys have. So that was good.
Daphne, if the committee has thoughts after this, is there a time frame when this is going to be finally approved?
Yes, we're looking to get it to, so we'll have a public hearing, I believe, on April 14th. So anytime, before then, or if you attend our public hearing as well, you can provide feedback at that point.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other last thoughts on this agenda item, Charles?
No, I'm just gonna email Daphne. That's gonna be quicker.
Okay, thank you, Daphne. And we'll move on to the next item. Is approval of 2026 testing services agreements.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with this, and we have Sean Olsrud, our engineering technician, who kind of pilots this project. But similar to what we brought forward earlier this year, we have entered into annual agreements with geotechnical firms to provide testing services. So that's boring and other testing as they relate to construction projects. So yeah, that's in your packet is a spreadsheet summary of the unit prices, as well as a template agreement for the terms of the services to be provided. And Sean, anything I missed, or is that kind of a
Nope, this is pretty straightforward. This is just our annual testing services, so nothing's changed.
You do this every year, update this,
Yes, this
sign
is
it again?
this is an annual. It's just the type of work that prices can change more frequently, so we do this annually.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee? Charles?
Yeah, Sean, so obviously there are a limited number of firms that do this sort of work. They are generally hired and have existing business relationships with other firms that the city occasionally hires, I assume. Has the city developed a formal conflict of interest policy? I assume the answer is yes, just if you could send that over.
We'll check and send that over to you.
If we don't have one, then we should probably develop one.
Agreed.
Can you say that one more time? What should we develop?
If we don't have a conflict of interest policy.
Oh, yeah.
We develop one.
Yeah.
I assume we have one. I just haven't seen it. So
I have not seen it either, but we will check with our city attorney as well. So make sure we've got.
So I'll make the motion that committee recommend to finance and personnel committee and common council approval. Annual testing services agreement with CEC. Gestra. Yeah. And SES.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anybody have any additional comments or questions? We'll move right on to a vote then. All those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, next agenda item.
Actually,
Oh, go ahead.
We go on. Just do we incorporate that policy in if we do have one, and I'm assuming that we do. Just one attorney, the city attorney review follow-up would be to check where in that it's specifically incorporated. I assume there's a clause that we have that's city of Middleton policies generally, but it may be worth specifically enumerating it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put that in the minutes for this meeting, right?
Yep.
It's a good thing to track, I think. Okay, our next agenda item is approval of transportation project plat for County Highway M Bridge Replacement Project.
Thanks, Chair. I'll take this one. So this is related to the bridge replacement project that's occurring in 2027. So this is a Dane County led, along with the State Department of Transportation project to replace a bridge that goes over Pheasant Branch Creek. So in your packet, you'll see the transportation project plat that the DOT put together for the project, and it's needed in order to obtain temporary limited easements from some parcels as part of this construction project. So the DOT and Dane County need an approved plat in order to begin the real estate acquisition services or part of the process that is the city is working on with MSA as well as the design engineers for this project. Action from the committee would be approval of the plat or recommendation to council for approval of the plat spelled out, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Something that has to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you're gonna build a bridge, you gotta have available lands to do it from.
Yes.
this isn't even the design of the bridge that was already done, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just the,
Construction, certainly.
Yeah.
Construction.
Correct.
oh, looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yes.
This is the hard part of the project that someone else gets to do.
Yes.
The easement.
We get all
Let's say-
things.
yeah.
So I'll make the motion that we recommend the common council approval of the transportation project plat number 5993-01-07-4.01.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Moving on to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimous. And Next item is approval of task order number 26-04 for the 2026 Risk and Resiliency Assessment and Emergency Response Plan Update with Strand Associates.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take a start at this, and then we also have Mike Meyer, Utility Manager, and Ryan Wood from Strand Associates on the call. So this is a task order to Strand for them to provide the 5-year update to our RRA, or Risk and Resilience and Emergency Response Plan. This is required by the EPA. So yeah, it's kind of a mandatory work that's required, and happy to answer any questions or have Ryan or Mike chime in if you want any further details on kind of what that looks like. And I'll try to mention at the end of this meeting, we do have a presentation from Strand that kind of goes over and includes these documents that Strand have been kind of putting together over the years and the direction that the water utility is going. So.
Charles?
Yeah, I have one that doesn't need an immediate answer. But Ben, if you could follow up with Matt,
Mhm.
I want to figure out if there's a way to put, and I think there is, but I'm not an attorney. If there's a way to put the emergency response plan discussions into a closed session.
Okay.
In the interests of safety for the utility.
Would your request be when this goes to finance and council to do it in closed session?
No, when we review.
Oh, when we review it.
plan.
Oh, got
The
it.
actual
Yep.
plan.
The actual plan.
Yes.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, discussing the appropriation is not a problem.
Okay.
Yep.
Discussing what comes back,
Yes,
that has a foreseeable risk to public safety.
absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that acknowledgement as well, Charles. Good point.
That's actually one thing that the EPA wants, is that this document that we prepare is not a public document. We stamp it and then mark it as draft final. That way it's not something that can be FOIA'd. So I think that's a pretty standard thing.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Assumed did Strand prepare it last time?
Yes.
I've made too many motions already,
Say,
so
I'm-
I'm gonna wait for the next one maybe.
I'll go ahead and make this one. I'll recommend that I'll move that the Public Works Committee, acting as the Board of Directors for the water utility, recommend to Finance and Personnel and the Common Council approval of task order number 26-04 for the 2026 Risk Resiliency Assessment and Emergency Response Plan update in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
I'll say.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think we'll move right on to a vote. All those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Sure.
Mr. Chair, we've gone about an hour.
Oh, you're right. We'll take a 5-minute recess and return at 7:35.
Thank you.
I hate being the old guy.
See, that's why the young guy asks for it.
No, that's good. Then I don't look so bad.
Oh, thank you.
Ben, did you steal my red keyboard?
That wasn't me.
No. I'm like, what the heck? My red keyboard made it up there. Pretty sure nobody else has got one of those.
It was easy to grab.
This is an
Yeah.
intent.
Yeah, I know. You like that?
The lights are kind of distracting.
Yeah.
You can change that pattern real easy if you want to
Oh.
get that goofy scroll up top with that wheel.
Okay. Yeah, we couldn't get the keyboard in here to work, so we were panicking.
Did you go wireless? It looks like it's wired in because that thing will do anything basically.
Yeah, it's wired in right now. And
Okay.
it's working So I love it.
All right, there we go.
So
That's
thank
all
you
we
for
need.
your contribution.
Of course, of course. I got my two cohort officers at the fire meeting giving me updates minute to minute. So
Nice.
yeah, see what happens.
Hey, Ben, are you going to want me to pull up the presentation on my screen, or do you want to share it on yours?
If you can share it, that would be appreciated.
Yep, I can do that.
Awesome.
And is my volume okay? I've got two different sets of headphones I can use here.
Yeah, no, we can hear you good here.
All right.
I hope everyone's kids are staying healthy because our whole family's come down with something in the past like week.
That's exactly why Ryan and I are not there because
Same.
I was last week. There was one day I was with Ben and I'm like, I don't have a voice. And then that was like the key to stay home basically after I found that out. So
Oh my God. This morning I was like whispering. My daughter's like, "Can you speak louder?" I was like, "No, yeah, not without being in pain." But yeah, everyone, it just took us all down the past few days.
no, exactly.
On right now.
Mhm. Mike, do you want to introduce the next one, the next task order, or do you want me to?
You're fine with it.
Okay.
They're all pretty straight and
Straightforward.
as far as
They're explained in the memos, so.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think any of them should be surprises.
No.
Am I going to work that conflict of interest policy into like recommendation? Motion, or is that like a future agenda thing?
Maybe just make a note that Myers requested.
Same with ERP.
Yeah. Base tomorrow, so I can remember and then reach out to Matt on both those issues today or tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And city
Oh.
attorney
On our
on the conflict of interest and take it into closed session for that.
and I don't think he got that public records request.
Okay.
Me and Abby.
Okay. Yeah, your request came from somebody else. The request that I had come in the fall of 25. Oh yeah. Yeah. Someone different.
I started, actually, I just started putting together, sent out any.
Oh, that's a meeting you were. Hey, by the way, does Ryan, do they have real picture up there, like his face, or just a screen line?
Ryan is not a so committee.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh.
So we're okay then. huh?
Yeah, we have to be visible to him.
I'm just thinking.
He gets to take this meeting in his shorts if he wants to.
Oh, jeez.
I do not have shorts on. I have pants on. I didn't want to end it with just that.
Just checking, Ryan, I want to be legal.
All right, we'll get started again. Our next agenda item, let's see, is approval of task order number 26-07 for well number 7 facility design and bidding with Strand Associates.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that. And again, we have Mike and Ryan who are able to ask detailed questions. But this is another Strand order or task order with Strand for the design of the treatment facility located at the well number 7 well site. And it's for design services, final design services, and then finally bidding related services for this project. Yeah, happy to answer any further questions, but this is coming before the body. So.
Just for a point of reference for the entire committee, actually, what's the estimated cost of this project?
Of the entire well 7 project?
Yeah.
A lot.
Like,
Well, I figured that because they want a lot in fees, but I was just curious, so.
Right, and there's several stages to this. And you may recall we've already done some preliminary testing of well 7 that we recently got done with, which was test pumping it to see what water qualities remained. We were hoping we would get back to the original test levels that were basically done upon the well boring initially, like 30 years ago, right? We did get our results back, and they were very similar to the ones that we had from 30 years ago, which was good because it took us a little while to get there to pump out a lot of water and figure out the qualities we have. As far as a number, I'm gonna go to Ryan, but I believe last talked about like overall said and done with design fees, testing, building. I think we're looking at, was it roughly 7 million? Ryan, all in the end?
Yeah, that's pretty close. We've got the construction cost at 6.2 million for the OPCC. And then obviously engineering services above that. So
And crazily enough, that is with saving $1 million due to well 7 already have been, placed, bored, and located in Stonefield area.
I can move it on. I'll make the motion that the Public Works Committee, acting as a board of directors for the water utility, recommend to Finance Personnel Committee and Common Council approval of task order 2607 for well number 7 facility design and bidding in the amount not to exceed $480,000 with Strand Associates,
I'll second that motion.
Inc. We need the ink on there, Ryan?
what was that?
Do we need the INC on there as opposed to just Strand Associates? I'm gonna put it on there because they are an incorporation.
Okay, yeah, put it on there.
Okay,
And that's as the board of directors for the water utility, right, Don?
Yes, I said that.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I was on it. I'm reading well.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go right on to the vote. All those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Charles?
Now that the motion's carried. Mike, just for the record, could you explain that the utility, we all, because we've had this discussion 1,000 times, know that the utility needs to expand its ability to provide water to people. But if you could just refresh for the public record that our city has grown faster than anticipated.
Just a point on that. Isn't the next topic the long-range planning efforts part of that whole discussion? And should we move to the next topic?
We should, but I want this on the record for this particular vote.
This project. Okay. All right, fine.
Yep, and both are correct. We do cover this intently in about 5 minutes, which is great. But to be noted, the reason for well 7 is because the growth of the city of Middleton has exceeded expectations. For future planning, we are moving at a faster rate, exponentially, than we had planned on. So, well 7 will help. Keep our demand, maximum demands and our basically our obligations to the community to keep it safe as far as fire protection and other things, that we are within reason to provide those services. With the adoption of well 7 coming online, this will also help alleviate the well 4, which we are looking to decommission at some point once well 7 comes online. Well 4 has served its due diligence. It's approaching, it's 100 years-ish old. We just did a rehab on it, and we know that basically we are getting all that we can get out of that well. So this is primarily necessarily to keep the city moving forward in in the right direction, I should say.
Yeah, and the last thing to add there is that well 7 was drilled in the late 1990s. The DNR has a pretty strict policy that if you don't use a well within 5 years, they want you to abandon it. They've let the city keep this open hole for the last 20 years, and every 5 years or so they push back a little bit on if they want you to abandon it or not. And last year they pushed back a little bit harder, and the city is getting to a point where they either have to abandon it or use it. And now is a good time to use it because it's probably worth about $1 million if you have to drill a new one. So.
Good.
Okay, thank you for that background information. And I think we'll hear a little more about it in a minute. We'll go on to this next agenda item, which is presentation on water utility long-range planning efforts.
Thank you, Chair. So Ryan Wood from Strand Associates, Inc. will present, and this work was done in conjunction with Mike Meyer, the water utility manager. Take it away, Ryan.
Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Again, Ryan Wood with Strand Associates. I apologize for not being there in person. Came down with a cold late last week, and I thought I was feeling better, and then today I wasn't feeling quite as good and didn't want to come there and get you all sick. So appreciate you guys letting me call in. So yeah, I'll get going here. So this presentation is the comprehensive planning efforts pave the way to capital improvement projects presented for the city of Middleton. All right. This presentation discusses the previous planning efforts and the subsequent water supply projects that are coming or have come out of those projects. It's going to include planning efforts to date, development projects that we just looked at, upcoming recommendations for the next several years, some additional topics and considerations that we've talked about over the last couple of years, and then just wrapping it up with a summary. So first item is the planning efforts. Summarize the water system capacity and the needs. And this is dating back, well, we've done several master plans and projects, but I'm starting this in 2019 with the last utility master plan was done in 2019. This was a desktop study only. This included both water and sanitary projects. Today, we're mostly talking about the water side of things. 2021, we performed the EPA required risk and resiliency assessments and the emergency response plan. The 5-year required update to that is what we talked about in the task order earlier today, which we'll be doing later this year, due in June for the RA and December for the ERP. 2022, we had a few larger development reviews, and those kind of continued on to the last couple of years. And then last year, end of 2024 through 2025, we did the facilities condition evaluation report, and that was basically an add-on to the master plan, which was not a desktop study. We brought an electrical, mechanical, and structural and process engineer out to each of the sites to review needs and condition. We prepared the water supply service area plan, which was a DNR requirement. I presented on that, I believe, in December, or was it November? I think it was December of last year. That will get updated with the next time we do a master plan, and then several other development reviews occurred last year. That brings us to today. We're talking about the ERP, the risk and resiliency, the Northern Loop, and the Well 7 project that was also approved. Okay, so diving into what we talked about in the master plan. That again was a desktop study. It looked at population growth, development, and development trends. We worked with city staff and planning at the development areas to lay out growth and population trends. And then we looked at demands to be able to accommodate that growth. So we looked at 2019, which was current day at that time, 2040 and 2070 demand analyses. We did field fire flow testing, created the water model, and calibrated it. And then to summarize that, we came up with both master. On the left here, we've got the anticipated maintenance improvements and when we expected those to occur. And then we've got the capital projects over on the right and when we expected those to occur. And again, that was based on 2019 master planning, which did not take into account the condition of these facilities, which we'll see later. Things have changed a bit, which is why it's always good to look at both a desktop and a facilities plan in conjunction with each other. The RA and ERP, we did that in 2021. That was an IPA code required project. And that basically looked at the potential risks that the city had and provided recommendations to address those risks. And then the ERP is your response plan, and that described the strategies, resources, and plans to prepare for and respond to an emergency. The RA strand does most of the work. The ERP is a much more collaborative process where the city has to get involved a bit more there, and that'll be the same thing coming up in 2026. And at the end of the day, we come up with plans and procedures to respond to specific incidents, and plans and strategies to detect and mitigate potential emergencies. And then in 2025, that's when we did the facilities evaluation. Again, that started in 24, published in 2025. It included structural, process, HVAC, electrical, and emergency operations review. Again, 2019 plan looked at the desktop calcs of the water system, but did not look at the physical condition of each facility. Aging facilities had not been reviewed since before 2010. So this report determined which projects should be completed to continue to provide reliable service to its customers. In addition to the condition, we looked at current codes and what facilities were meeting them with respect to the electric code, the DNR code, and the fire protection code. And then each facility was provided a list of potential improvements and OPC in $2,025, and then also an anticipated schedule for implementing those. And so while 5 is what's being constructed starting now, well 4 demo, and well 7 facility, that's a 2027 to 2028 project, with the design occurring in 2026. And then we'll talk about the rest of these later. And again, here's the total project cost for well 7 that we talked about earlier. I can come back to this later if anyone has any questions on it, but I'll keep going. The water supply service area plan, we talked about this in December 2025. I won't go into much detail on it here, but this was a DNR requirement for any municipality serving more than 10,000 people. And we amended that as part of the 2019 master plan. And there was no additional recommendations found beyond what we had previously talked about in the master plan or the facilities plan. All right, Pheasant Branch looping review letter. I think this will be a topic for the Public Works Committee later on, but the Pheasant Branch loop has been discussed since the 2010. It's being re-evaluated now due to the upcoming Century Ave Road construction project. We looked at 3 different alternatives. This was just a quick letter. The 3 that we looked at are in blue here. And one was going under the Pheasant Branch Conservancy. One was going just north of the Springs, and then one is going north up Blazer Road. That's right.
Balzer Road. There's the
Balzer. Yeah, I was like, I think that's wrong. Oh, yeah. Okay. To Cobb there. So this was generally recommended because it didn't have any wetland crossings, didn't require any intergovernmental agency discussions, and it is a good long-term route for where the expansion is occurring with the city. And we'll talk about the expansion areas in a little bit here. All right, so
Brian,
Yep.
are you taking questions or do you want to wait till the end?
so each one of these ribbons is kind of a new topic. So now would be a good point to pause and go back. So
Yeah, just for the Balzer Road preference for the utility, none of this is potentially going to be in Westport, when they incorporate, correct?
It'll be at the border.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought that was the case. I
Mhm.
just wanted to make sure
Yep.
while we were on the topic.
Yep. And this is right. I think as Ryan mentioned, I expect we'll bring this more for the committee to discuss and kind of digest further. But right, staff have been kind of looking over what our options are for the northern part of the city in terms of water service. So that's why we're talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to dive into that Century Ave, so there's currently 2 water main that go under that bridge there. One of them just east of that is cast iron pipe and prone to breaks. So when that road is replaced, they're going to go down to the 1 ductile iron and main pipe. And at that point in time, we would recommend having another place where this is looped in to the eastern part of the system. So, any more questions before I continue here?
None from me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So planning efforts, review future development. This was a map prepared back in 2019. But as you can see and obviously know, most of your future growth is planned for the north, with redevelopment occurring as well. So you can't see all these on the bottom right, but each one of those is a planned property development improvement between 2020 and 2070. And as we'll talk about, some of the items or some of the developments that we thought were going to be 2040 projects have already popped up. So going through what we had in 2019 for average day demand and max day demand versus based on the developments that's occurred, we've increased what we would expect your average day and max day demands to be by not a negligible amount. Adding a 0.5 million gallons per day or 1 for max day for the same date is a pretty big increase for the size of Middleton's utility. And obviously the change that kind of gets us a little bit nervous is that we went from having our firm well capacity being over the projected 2040 max day to being under it. And this value does not include any changes we're going to make to the system with respect to wells 2, 4, and 7. So this is just kind of a baseline as is. The other thing we found is that the values that we anticipated for the average day demand in general, compared to what has been proposed by the developer, they're all quite a bit higher than what we thought we were going to have. Now, I will say that on paper, they're quite a bit higher, but what the city has been experiencing and the demand that they have been seeing has not been what they've proposed. It's been closer to what we thought it was going to be, but it's hard to not trust people that they're going to use the water that they tell you that they're going to use in a planning context. So, the developments that we've looked at are listed
Hey, Ryan.
here.
Ryan, can you take a
Yep.
question, please?
Sure.
This is more of a pause question for Ben. I think based on the amount of money that the utility is about to spend, that it would be a good idea for us to loop in our colleagues on council and have a similar version of this presentation, just so they understand what our maximum day demand in 2040 now potentially looks like relative to our ability to.
That was all based on 2019 levels, so I think we ought to almost wait for this new report before that really takes place, because things have so dynamically changed since 1926. So that would be my concern. If we give this to them now, we're gonna have to do it again in whatever, it takes 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah, just at some point,
Yeah.
within the next year, I
Yeah.
think that we really do need to bring.
Water resources will want the same thing.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We can.
And it's currently in Ben's contract, or in his contract, so
Yeah.
just do that extra work.
Yep. No, we'll definitely, once we've got the update, we'll bring it to both bodies, to all bodies.
That'd be good.
Yeah, happy to help however I can there. So these are the developments that we've looked at in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think I've mentioned this before. A couple of these weren't planned to happen until after 2035. So just a note that things are occurring faster than what the Middleton Planning Committee thought back in 2019. We did update our calcs from 2019 to today's values based on these developments, including the current population. And as you can see, our max day demand has increased. And because we do the diurnal curve, our storage capacity has decreased. And I'm happy to talk about that if you need it. But basically, we anticipate that a fire occurs kind of in the worst part of the day, like at 3 o'clock. And by that time, because your max day demand has increased, your tanks aren't completely full at the time that fire occurs, which is why your storage is less. So our reserves that we have has decreased by almost 2,000 gallons per minute for a fire. Okay, so major recommendations and anticipated completion from the planning efforts. So what we've done since 2019, we've done well rehabs at 3, 4, 5, and 7, and then we didn't help out with this, but the city also did a rehab at well 2. Planned work in 2026 and 27 is the well 5 construction, the well 7 design and construction, and then what we've talked about previously in the looping the water main to the north. And then future work that will be coming up, which we'll talk about here in a minute, are decommissioning well 4. I think we studied on this last year, but moving from chlorine gas to liquid chlorine, doing the well number 6 facility rehab as well as your booster station rehabs. And then once well 2 either is due for a rehab or has a pump failure, taking that offline as well. So just a quick summary of each of these projects that are coming up. Well 5 was constructed in 1964. It has provided a reliable source of water and generally has pretty good water quality. For reference, the chlorine demand at well 5 is a little over 2 compared to well 7. The chlorine demand in milligrams per liter is over 7. So to be treating well 4, you're using over 3 times the amount of chlorine, which 1 is expensive, but 2, the more chlorine you have in your distribution system, the more problems you can have, which is why we want to long-term look at the long-term viability there of well 4. So well 5, we are separating the chlorine and fluoride chemical feed rooms. We are replacing all the electrical equipment, including adding a portable generator, structural repairs, including roof replacement and door replacements. And then other DNR required improvements. Again, they're looking to start construction in March of 26, but most of the major improvements will be occurring the winter of 26, 27. And that's just because the electrical gear is getting completely replaced, and that has between an 8 and 10 month lead time. And we want to take this offline kind of all at it once in winter when the demands are low, and then almost all of the work is going to occur then during winter. Project cost is $2.25 million, which is below the OPC that we provided pre-bid. That's the well 5 project. The well 7 project that was just approved. Yep, go ahead.
We have a question, Ryan.
Yep.
Yep.
Back on well 5. I'm sorry. There's one bullet point that I know from my conversations with Mike, and other members of the committee know from their conversations with Mike, that I'd like to see on this when we're talking about it, which is evaluate the facility for opportunities to make more sustainable decisions with the infrastructure in line with the city's sustainable purchasing policy. I know that we're doing it, but sometimes if people don't see it as a point when they're looking at what we're doing as a utility, they believe that we're not doing it. We all know that that's not true, but just from a public communication standpoint with other city stakeholders, I think with that.
Let me make a note to myself, sorry.
I think too, Charles, in the presentation, Ryan will be getting to the VFDs as a set aside thing, which I think is obviously very important. I know I've pointed out to everybody that's thankfully gone on the tour with us.
Yes, we will be talking about some potentials there. So, okay, continuing on, I think. So well 7, again, this is designed more of well for replacement, originally drilled in 1999. We didn't put this one online before well 8 was installed mostly because of the cob planning. They wanted a source east of the springs there, which I think is a good idea. This is a rather large project. It includes a filter system, backwash holding tank, chemical treatment rooms, well pump, and portable standby power. The plan is to size this facility to be able to share the same generator that you're going to be using at well 5. So again, preliminary design anticipated to start in March and next year. Yep. And final design ending March of next year. Advertisement early to mid next year, with construction beginning next summer. Lead
Another
times
question,
are.
Ryan?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just on the previous slide, if we could just include a substantially identical bullet point to the one for well 5. Sorry to bring it up and interrupt the train, but
Nope, this is all good stuff. All right. Again, lead times on electrical gear, large well pumps, is long. So a 2-year project is pretty typical. I think we could probably get it done a little bit earlier, but it's still going to be sometime in 2029, whether it's May of 29 or fall. It'll be 2029. So if you go back and look at the cost we had in 2019, construction costs have increased according to the building cost index by 42% since 2019. And then the other difference between the cost we had in 2019 is because we didn't have the water quality. We were not planning on treated back then. And now, based on the water quality, we are going to require treatment. And then that also didn't have the standby power costs as well. Well 4, we've already talked a little bit about. Well 4, the well hole and the filter both have a large amount of biofilm, and the well hole has ammonia. Currently, the city is using 3 to 4 times more chlorine at this site than at any of their other sites. It's an older facility, and to rehab it, we typically look at the rehab costs compared to the new build costs, and then on a building that's over, it's over 60 years old, approaching 70 years old. If we're under, or if we're over half the cost to rehab a 70-year-old building, that's about the time where we say it's probably pays to start it. And with the water quality issues that we have here as well, that's kind of what made us lean towards doing the work at well 5, but not doing it at 4. And when we take this offline is really, it's really up to the city. We want to wait at least until well 7 is up and running, and then it's you either keep it online until something expensive fails, or you take it offline on purpose. You know, it's kind of whatever the utility wants to do at that point in time. So I think we've already talked about this enough. The Northern Water Main Loop. This has an OPC of almost $4 million. I won't go into this in any more detail because I think we've talked about this enough tonight. Well, 6 rehab. This is a relatively this facility is in generally pretty good condition. Not a whole lot of structural improvements that are required here. The large cost here that we have is adding a new generator to the facility, and then, as we talked about with moving from chlorine gas to liquid chlorine, we have to create a new chemical feed room in this building, and that's what is driving this cost up to around $900,000 is the generator and the chemical feed rooms. And then there's some minor other repairs and maintenance that we would do that as well. We've talked about this already, transition the chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite. Again, the chlorine gas is less expensive. So by going from chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite, you do increase your chemical costs, but you decrease the chemical equipment costs and the safety equipment costs. Currently, you don't have, your rooms that you have right now don't have the safety equipment that are required if you were to have a brand new room. And to add in those safety features would be hundreds of thousands of dollars across the city. Currently, all well facilities besides well 8 have the chlorine gas and fluoride in the same room, which does not meet code. And when you change to liquid chlorine, that will trigger the new code to go into effect to separate those rooms. This doesn't have to be done all at once. As you update sites, you can do each site individually. Greenway Booster Station. This site is generally in good condition here. The main cost here is the generator is out of date, and there's other electrical equipment that is out of date and past its useful services life. So at one point in time, whether it's 2030 or after, this cost is mostly replacing electrical equipment. Quarry Booster Station. I think this is going to deserve more discussion when we do the next utility master plan, probably in 2029. This is an old facility. The reservoir is fed by wells 2 and 3, which are both old. And we've talked about well 2 being the commission at one point in time, well, 3 is old, but it's still doing pretty well. But at one point in time, you're going to have to decide what to do with this facility. But at a minimum, it has the chlorine and fluoride rooms for the wells 2 and 3. Water, and those chemicals have to be separated because chlorine and fluoride are currently in a combined room, and this site does not have a generator. There's also some kind of minor structural issues that would be addressed as well. And again, this would be kind of an after 2030 project. I already talked to well 2. Well 2 has a narrow, crooked hole. This is your oldest well. It's only produces 330 gallons per minute. Due to the well being crooked, the well pump and line shaft often fail before you would expect them to. So the maintenance cost on this well is higher than what you would want for the water quantity that it produces. So at one point in time, it's probably going to have to go. But again, that's up. But the benefit that well 2 and 3 have are it feeds the water that is in the quarry reservoir. And if you were to ever get rid of those 2 wells, then you would have to fill the quarry at night probably through distribution water, which is not any efficient way to do it because you pump up that water and then you bring it back down to the ground level and then you would pump it back up again. So the future anticipated work impacts system reserve capacity. This is kind of the summary of what we've talked about in the past and why we're doing the projects that we're doing. This current column is this same column that we presented before. And then if you get rid of wells 2 and 4, this is where you're kind of getting into the problem area in 2040 for your max day demand. But if you add in well 7, you get back up into a place where you're feeling more comfortable. So this is in our mind the justification for why we have to put in well 7 and not just get rid of 2 and 4. And then finishing up here, this will be pretty quick, I think. Just the other items that we've kind of talked about over the last 6 or 7 years are chloride levels, storage facility improvements, and some VFD discussions. So you guys probably can't see this very well, but this is a map of each well, and it has your chlorided levels, your well capacity, your casing diameter, and your casing depth. And what I really wanted to present is on this next slide is if we look at this 0 here where blue is going down, that is your casing depth of your well. And the orange going up is your chlorided levels. And then this green line here is the average depth of the shale layer, which is the confining aquifer between the upper aquifer and the lower. And what is pretty clear is your chloride levels when you case below that shale are almost zero. But when you're not cased through that shale, you have higher levels. And the issue that we run into with at least wells 2 and 3, right, are, well, 2 is an 8-inch diameter well, and really, unless you're going to do like an RO type treatment, the only way you can really bring these chloride levels down is by adding in a liner, which reduces the well hole diameter and reduces the well's pumping capacity. Would be to drop a liner in these wells. And so well 2 would go from an 8-inch to probably a 4-inch, which means you really can't put a pump in there. That's going to produce the kind of water that you would want. Well 3 would have to go from a 15-inch to an 11-inch, which you could do, but again, we'd have to reduce the well pump size. Whereas well 6, you could put a liner in this one and go from a 20 to a 16-inch, and we can still put a pretty big well pump in a 16-inch well hole. So just when you're talking about chloride levels, I really think your only problem well seems to be 2, 3, and 6. And well 6 is really the only one you can probably do anything about if you wanted to. Well 2, you're talking about getting rid of anyways. And well 3 would be pretty impractical to put a liner in there. So that's just something to keep in mind if we ever want to talk chlorides later. Upcoming storage facility inspections and recommendations. These are your ground level tanks, well 6 and the quarry, and then towers 1 and 2. Well 6 is due this year, quarry is due next year. I think well 6 is due for a dive or robot inspection this year. Is that correct, Mike?
Yep, that is scheduled.
Yep. So that's something that'll be done by somebody other than us. We only do the full drain down inspections, but we do like to kind of keep track of when they're due and kind of what we're anticipating repairs are going to be needed the next time they're taken offline. So well 6 won't have to be offline, so these repairs won't probably occur until 2031 when it's taken offline and drained down 5 years later. So then getting into the VFD discussion, all of your well pumps, but wells 2 and 4 are on VFDs, but your booster pumps, your quarry reservoir pumps, none of those are on VFDs. And I don't think we included that in the cost when we talked about the electrical improvements. So adding VFDs, the quarry would be above and beyond like that 1.2 that we talked about earlier tonight. But diving more into the VFDs and how they relate to energy and cost. So one thing that we can do is we can look at pump efficiency. So generally speaking, we care about VFDs to slow the startup and the shutdown of the pumps to prevent water hammer and surges. That's what we generally care most about. But they typically ramp up to full speed once they do their load startup. But every pump has a speed that operates most efficiently at, and that might be, 55 hertz out of 60. That obviously slows the pump down, but it's we can do field testing to find the most cost effective speed to operate those pumps at. The only caveat there is if we do change the long-term speed setting, that does reduce the capacity of those pumps. So the operational impacts of that would have to be looked at before we made any changes. But there are both potential electrical cost and environmental impacts to talk about there. And then the other thing that we could look at, and this would be a discussion with MG&E, is we can look at reviewing demand time and peak demand charges. And this is basically time of day. Typically, if you pump at night, you can get some off-peak costs, and that can lower your overall electrical bill, but it doesn't really change how much energy you're using. And then the peak demand charge, that is typically the highest kilowatts that you use over a 15-minute period. That is what your peak demand charges based on for the entire month. So if you haven't run all of your booster pumps, it doesn't pay to run all of your booster pumps once per billing cycle. Like, you can moderate your operations to try to use the least amount of high peak usage that you can. And that's an operational change that we would have to look at if the utility was interested in that. So that is what I have today to talk about. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take any. Mike or Ben, anything you guys want to add or cover in more detail there?
No, not on my end.
Just ready for questions.
Yep.
All right, Charles.
I know it's getting late.
Yeah, so this isn't necessarily a question, just more of a general comment for how we want to present this outside of a utility. As we've all discussed as a utility board and as board members with utility staff, it's important to make sure that we're communicating out in the city what the utility is doing to become more sustainable. We, especially toward the end of the presentation, it's really incredible what we're doing. But just when we're talking about specific projects, just incorporate by reference why we're doing things and that we're doing things related to the city's adopted sustainable policies. Also, when we're not doing things as a utility, like installing solar panels on a well that is underneath a tree, like a large shade tree, for instance. We should probably just explain why certain approaches to sustainability are widely regarded as popular, or just widely regarded as good, and widely recognized as sustainable, may not actually be the sustainable choice for that specific structure or a prudent use of ratepayer dollars, when we could get better returns with our sustainability spend elsewhere. So great, really informative presentation. Thank you so much, Ryan, for all the work that you've done on it. I just wanted to add that feedback. And I think I've filibustered long enough for Don in case he has any questions.
My only concern is to make sure the VFDs are the right application. Yeah. And I know you have real smart electrical people there because I trained a few of them.
That's right. We did have one crash out, or basically life expectancy at well 8 earlier this year. And throughout the summer, when it was get really hot, it would kick out. So we actually just ended up buying like a regular room fan and sticking it inside the cabinet to keep it cool. And that kept it going long enough to get the replacement installed. So
Mike, that is way too often the solution I've seen in many, 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 many projects. The other thing is the speed of the pump. And Ryan touched on it briefly. You've really got to look at the efficiency of that pump and what your kilowatts per gallon is. Because if that efficiency goes to hell at a low speed, you don't want to run it at that low speed, even though you don't need all that water flow. So anyway, that's all part and parcel, which he did gloss over, or not gloss over, but did cover in his presentation. So it was very good.
I actually called Ryan about that today. He had yet to call me back. I was going to maybe make him stay on a little later because at well 5, right, as we're bringing well 5 on right now and bringing it up to, I think we brought it up to 60 hertz. We definitely noticed some hesitation in the motor, some things that we didn't like. So I know I got to talk to Ryan about that. So, because that 60 hertz at well 5 is generally like what we found for optimal, pumping and all that. So.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, that was very, very good report. Very informative. A lot of things I haven't heard yet. And I kind of reviewed some of the master utility plan, and this was kind of a good summary of what's already in there, but in a more easily accessible way format. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Appreciate you bearing with me here. My speech impediment always gets a little bit worse when I've got a cold. So this was like the worst day that I could come and talk to you, but we made it through. So appreciate you guys having me here.
Great job. Thank you.
Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mike,
Ryan.
do you want to talk yet?
Yeah, I mean, if there's any more questions or anything, I mean, this is kind of working with Ryan on this and Ben and all of you, these are kind of the red flags I've been throwing up that the utility is challenged with. Obviously, these are, some very aggressive projects and they're very heavy lifts with very large capital requests, right? I know we're going to need to have some financial talks with Bill, maybe look at some borrowing, which is something I'm definitely not educated on. I will, it's going to take some research, and there's luckily, like with the PSC and a lot of other things, DNR, and of course, Strand, we have a lot of options. So we have a lot of people that will help us. So that's always good.
Sure.
Mary, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. As a non-engineer, I have been trying to latch on to a lot of these ideas and getting to know Mike and understanding more about the different wells and their capacities. That presentation resonated even more. So I think it's really helpful to see that. And then I think just on a bigger picture, like whenever this, like Don noted, getting updated numbers to eventually present to council. But I think we really need to be looking at these projects and be considering the types of developments, how Middleton is growing, and hopefully supporting more resources for the water utility staff as well. Because these projects are all going through the same number of people, and they're really big and they're really complex, and they take, they go overlapping at various times. And if we're really being responsible as the, board of directors of the water utility, I think it's our job to make sure that we're constantly bringing up the staffing requirements that it takes to make sure that these are all people that are well versed in the system, that have worked here for more than a few years, and that are understanding Mike's vision of getting these projects to the finish line.
All right. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item unless there's any last minute thoughts on this. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to take off.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, call me tomorrow.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks. Yep. Good night.
All right. We're gonna move on to liaison briefings. Mary, did you have any Conservancy Lands Committee since our last meeting 2 weeks ago?
No.
No. Okay. Don?
The only thing with water resources is I'll just put it out there, concerned about the wells. And what I might do is go on the side and call Ryan and say, Ryan, can I get a copy of your PowerPoint? And then work with them, Jim, our chair, and say, okay, you tell me in this report what you want to know about. And then I'll get back to Strand and we can get a shortened report because I'm not sure they need to know all the little details. And the report was excellent.
Yeah.
So.
It's in the agenda packet too.
Oh, that's right, it is. So no problem. I'll just tell them to go look at that
Yeah.
and say, hey, Jim, go look at this and tell me what you want and I'll work with Strand to get a shortened presentation.
Yeah, Luke and I can definitely help in terms of whatever information you guys need.
Okay. So that was it. We're still struggling with stormwater flow through the north side with all this development and what's going on. Person not on the committee, commission rather, asked well, can we use this land and this development for gardens? And it was, well, no, for water storage. So anyway.
I know too, from a utility standpoint, we're bringing online the well 7, but we're looking at decommissioning a well 4 and a well 2. And, as we push further to the north, well 7 in Stonefield, there is a very unoptimal place to have that well. It's a very tight, goofy, odd piece of land where we've been kind of shoved onto, and that will, as we move forward, the DNR will not let us just have some random chunk of land that's in a corner someplace. There's a lot of new rules as we're finding out as we move forward with well rehabs and everything else. So
You find all those with the stick, right?
Right, widgie stick, right? The widgie sticks, exactly. You'd be surprised, Don. Those things do have work for certain things. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, it's as things move to the north, the utility itself is going to have to look for probably an optimal piece of land to consider. Like a well 9, basically, eventually here. So.
Okay. Anything else, Don?
Yep, that was it.
go around and do future meeting agenda items. Mary, I think I'll start with you. Do you have anything for our next meeting?
No, I don't.
Okay, Charles?
Yeah, I have a few. Um, going to reiterate the agenda items I proposed at the end of the last meeting. Since we haven't discussed this, they are included in the minutes for the 2/9 meeting. Also, city design standards and definitions of raised crosswalks. This is to deconflict planning documents, which per alternatively to raised crosswalks as either raised crosswalks or not raised crosswalks.
Nothing.
For me.
I don't have anything. So we've reached the end of our agenda and I will adjourn the meeting at 8:47. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.